The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was bigger than any building on Earth. Jake Morrison stood in the center of it, looking up at thousands of alien faces staring down at him. Each face belonged to a different species from across the galaxy. Some had 4 eyes, others had tentacles where humans had arms. Some glowed with their own light while others looked like walking rocks. Jake was not afraid. He had been a soldier for 30 years and had seen many battles. But this was different. This was not a fight he could win with guns or ships. This was politics, and the entire galaxy had already decided what they wanted to do with humanity. The alien at the front of the hall stood up. Her name was Chancellor Vexithera, and she ruled the most powerful empire in the galaxy. Her skin was blue and covered in scales that sparkled under the bright lights. When she spoke, her voice echoed through the massive room. "The vote is complete," she announced. "Every species represented in this council has made their choice. Resolution 2847 passes with no votes against it. The human species will be placed under immediate galactic supervision." Jake felt his heart sink, but he kept his face calm. He had expected this, but hearing it still hurt. Behind him, he could hear Lisa Harper, his second-in-command, take a sharp breath. She was young for an officer, only 28, but she was smart and brave. Jake was glad she was there with him. The resolution meant that humans would lose everything they had built among the stars. All the colonies they had established on distant worlds would be abandoned. All the trade agreements they had signed would be canceled. Humanity would be locked inside their own solar system like prisoners in a cage. One by one, the alien leaders stood to explain why they had voted against humanity. The Altarians were tall and graceful, with long necks and silver skin. Their leader spoke in a musical voice about how humans were too aggressive and moved too fast through space. They said humans took risks that put everyone in danger. The Corvin hegemony was next. They were a military people who looked like giant insects, with armor plated on their bodies. Their general clicked his mandibles as he spoke about human territorial expansion. He said humans claimed too many worlds and did not respect the old boundaries that had kept peace in the galaxy for thousands of years. Even the ethereal collective voted against humanity. These aliens were almost like ghosts, barely visible and known throughout the galaxy for never fighting anyone. Their representative floated above the floor as she spoke about how human emotions were too strong and unpredictable. She said humans brought chaos wherever they went. Jake listened to each speech with growing anger, but he did not let it show. These aliens talked about humans like they were wild animals that needed to be controlled. They did not understand that everything humans had done in space was to survive and grow, just like any other species would do. Back on Earth, President Martin Cross was watching the trial on a secure communication link. He sat in the Oval Office with General Patricia Stone standing beside him. The general was a tough woman in her 50s who had spent her career preparing for wars that might never come. Today she looked like she wished she had prepared for this one. "They are really going to do it," the president said quietly. 53 different species all voted the same way. General Stone nodded grimly. "Every single one of them sees us as a threat. They think if they lock us up in our own system, we will just accept it and behave ourselves." The president turned back to the screen where Jake Morrison was still standing trial. "What do you think Jake will do?" "Something they do not expect," the general replied. She was right. As the last alien finished speaking against humanity, Jake Morrison stepped forward. The hall became quiet as thousands of alien eyes focused on him. He was just one human standing alone in front of the most powerful beings in the galaxy, but he did not look small or defeated. "You have all spoken about what humanity has done wrong," Jake said, his voice carrying clearly through the hall. "You talk about our expansion, our aggression, our unpredictability. You say we are dangerous and need to be controlled." He paused and looked around the hall, meeting the eyes of as many aliens as he could. "You are absolutely right. We are dangerous. We are unpredictable. And you have no idea how much you have just made us angry." A murmur went through the hall. Many of the aliens looked confused. This was not the response they had expected from a defeated enemy. Jake continued, "You think you understand humans, Because you have watched us for 50 years. You have seen us build colonies and make trade deals. You think that is all we know how to do, but you forgot something important about us. Chancellor Vexithara leaned forward in her seat. What did we forget, human? Jake smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of a predator who had been hiding his teeth. You forgot that before we ever reached the stars, we spent 10,000 years learning how to fight each other on our own world. We are very, very good at war. And now you have given us a reason to remember that. The hall erupted in noise as thousands of aliens began talking at once. Some laughed at what they thought was an empty threat from a species that would soon be locked away. Others looked worried as if they were beginning to understand that they might have made a mistake. Jake Morrison stood in the center of it all, still smiling. The galaxy had voted to cage humanity, not knowing that they had just made the worst enemy they could imagine. The vote was finished, but the real fight was about to begin, and humanity had been preparing for this fight much longer than anyone knew. 6 months had passed since the Galactic Council made their decision. The punishment for humanity was now real and happening every day. Commander Zalkar of the Corvan Hegemony floated in his command chair aboard the warship Death's Edge, watching, his sensors carefully. His job was simple but important. Make sure no human ship left the solar system. Around him, his crew worked at their stations. The bridge was dark and filled with the clicking sounds that his species made when they were focused. Through the main window, he could see the other ships in the blockade fleet. There were over 200 warships from different alien species, all working together to keep humanity trapped. Zalkar felt proud of this assignment. The humans had been troublemakers for too long, spreading through space like some kind of disease. Now they were locked in their home system where they belonged. Soon, they would learn to accept their place as a minor species under galactic control. Captain Velandra of the Altarian Navy was positioned on the other side of the solar system with her own fleet. Her ship, the Silver Wind, was beautiful and elegant like all Altarian vessels. She monitored long-range sensors that could detect any human activity throughout the system. So far, everything was quiet. The Altarians had been worried about this mission at first. Their people did not like conflict and preferred peaceful solutions. But the humans had left them no choice. Their rapid expansion and aggressive behavior threatened the stability that had kept the galaxy peaceful for centuries. On Earth, the situation was getting worse every day. Dr. Susan Blake worked in her laboratory deep underground in Geneva, trying to solve problems that seemed impossible. The blockade had cut off all supply lines from human colonies. Food that had been grown on agricultural worlds could no longer reach Earth. Medical supplies that had been manufactured in orbital facilities were no longer available. Susan was a brilliant scientist, but she felt helpless. Her team had been working around the clock to find alternatives, but Earth simply could not support its population without the resources from space. People were starting to get sick. Food was being rationed. The economy was collapsing. But Susan did not know about the other projects happening in secret facilities around the world. Colonel Ryan Turner was overseeing construction work that had been going on for years in underground bunkers. These projects had been so classified that even most government officials did not know about them. Ryan walked through a massive underground facility in Nevada, watching as workers put the finishing touches on something that looked like a spacecraft, but unlike any ship anyone had ever seen before. The hull was black and seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The design was sleek and deadly, built for one purpose: war. "How many more do we have ready?" Ryan asked his assistant, Lieutenant Kate Morris. 15 are completed, sir," Kate replied, checking her tablet. "Another 30 will be ready within the month." Ryan nodded. The Prometheus project had been in development for over a decade, started by leaders who had seen this day coming long before the Galactic Council vote. While the aliens thought they knew everything about human technology, they had no idea what humans were really capable of when pushed to their limits. Captain Michelle Barnes was in another facility on the other side of the country, training crews for these new ships. The pilots and officers under her command were not ordinary humans. They had been selected for their exceptional abilities and then enhanced through experimental procedures that pushed human biology to its limits. The neural Enhancement Program had been Dr. Susan Blake's earlier work, before she had been transferred to solving the current crisis. These enhanced humans could think faster, react quicker, and process information better than any normal person. More importantly, they could fly the new ships in ways that would be impossible for regular pilots. President Martin Cross visited one of these facilities in secret, accompanied by General Patricia Stone. They watched as enhanced pilots ran through simulations preparing for battles that officially did not exist yet. "How long before we are ready?" the president asked quietly. "The first squadron can launch within 2 weeks," General Stone replied. "The full fleet will be operational in 6 months." The president looked troubled. "The people are suffering. The blockade is slowly killing us. Can we really wait 6 months?" General Stone's expression was grim but determined. "We get one chance at this, sir. If we move too early, we lose everything. The galaxy expects us to be desperate and weak. They think we will beg for mercy or try some desperate attack that they can easily defeat. But we are not going to do that," the president said. "No, sir. We are going to do something they never expect. We are going to win." Meanwhile, the aliens in the blockade fleet were settling into their routine. Commander Zalkar had been monitoring human communications and was pleased with what he heard. The humans were arguing among themselves about rationing and resource allocation. Some were even calling for surrender to the Galactic Council. Captain Valandra received similar reports from her intelligence officers. Human morale appeared to be breaking down. Their military seemed to be focused on maintaining order on Earth rather than planning any kind of resistance. Everything was going according to plan. What the aliens did not know was that all of these communications were fake. The real human communications were happening on channels that the blockade fleet could not detect. The arguments about surrender were being staged by human actors to make the aliens think they were winning. In truth, humanity was preparing for something that no alien species had ever seen before. Total war conducted by a species that had evolved specifically to fight and survive. The blockade fleet thought they were containing a defeated enemy. They had no idea they were actually surrounding a trap that was about to spring shut. Deep in his underground command center, Jake Morrison looked at tactical displays showing the positions of every alien ship in the blockade. Soon, very soon, the galaxy would learn what humans were really capable of when their survival was threatened. The Iron Curtain had descended around Earth, but it was about to become a cage for the aliens, not the humans. 2 years had passed since the blockade began. Lieutenant Commander Alex Chen sat at his sensor station aboard the Altarian vessel Silver Wind, watching the same empty space he had been monitoring for months. The job had become boring. The humans had been quiet for so long that many of the blockade ships had reduced their crew shifts. Alex was human, but he worked for the Altarian Navy as part of an exchange program that had started before the conflict. The Altarians had kept him on duty because they trusted his knowledge of human technology. What they did not know was that Alex had been feeding information to Earth through secret channels for the entire 2 years. The routine patrol was so normal that Alex almost missed it. A small blip appeared on his screen, moving slowly through the asteroid belt. It looked like a piece of space rock, the kind that drifted through the system all the time. But something about its movement pattern caught his attention. Alex ran a deeper scan and felt his heart start beating faster. The object was not an asteroid. It was moving under its own power, accelerating slowly toward the outer edge of the solar system. Before he could decide what to do, 17 more objects appeared on his screen, all moving in the same direction. "Captain Valandra," Alex called out, trying to keep his voice steady. "I have multiple contacts moving through Sector 7. The elegant Altarian captain glided over to his station. Her silver skin seemed to glow in the dim light of the bridge. "Show me," she said in her musical voice. Alex pointed to his screen. 18 objects moving in formation. They appear to be artificial, not natural asteroids. Captain Valandra studied the display with growing concern. The objects were accelerating faster now, their true nature becoming clear. They were ships, and they were heading directly for the blockade line. "Sound the alert," she ordered. "Contact the fleet commander." Tell him we have human vessels attempting to break the blockade. Across the blockade fleet, alarms began to sound. Commander Zalkar received the alert on his bridge and immediately ordered his ships to intercept. This was what they had been waiting for. The humans were finally making their desperate attempt to escape. All ships, move to intercept the human vessels, Zalkar transmitted across the fleet. Show them what happens when they try to defy the galaxy. But as the alien ships moved to engage, something strange happened. The human vessels suddenly accelerated far beyond what should have been possible. They moved faster than any ship the aliens had ever seen, closing the distance to the blockade line in minutes instead of hours. Captain Velandra watched in shock as the human ships approached her position. She ordered her weapons to target them, but her systems could not get a lock. The human ships seemed to absorb her scanning beams and deflect her targeting systems. Fire anyway, she ordered. Use area bombardment. The Silver Wind and the other Altarian ships opened fire, sending streams of energy toward the human formation. The aliens expected to see the primitive human vessels destroyed immediately. Instead, they watched in horror as their weapons passed harmlessly through some kind of defensive field around each human ship. Then the humans fired back. The weapons that came from the human ships were unlike anything in the galactic database. They did not use energy beams or plasma bolts like normal space weapons. Instead, they fired projectiles that moved at incredible speeds and seemed to ignore defensive shields completely. The first alien ship to die was a Corvin destroyer. The human projectile punched through its armor like it was made of paper, causing a massive explosion that lit up the darkness of space. Within seconds, 3 more alien ships were destroyed. On the bridge of the lead human ship, Admiral Jake Morrison smiled grimly as he watched the battle unfold on his tactical display. The vessel around him was unlike any ship humanity had ever built before. The bridge was dark and efficient, designed for war rather than exploration. The crew moved with perfect coordination, enhanced by the neural improvements that allowed them to think and react as one. Target the command ships first, Jake ordered. We want to cut off their communications. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Harper, now serving as his tactical officer, worked at her station with inhuman speed. Her enhanced reflexes allowed her to process targeting data faster than any normal person could handle. Firing solution locked on the Hegemony flagship, she reported. The human weapons struck Commander Zalkar's ship with devastating effect. The Death's Edge, which had seemed so powerful when enforcing the blockade, was crippled in a single attack. Zalkar himself survived, but his ship was dead in space, its weapons and engines destroyed. As the battle continued, the aliens began to understand that they were not fighting the same humans they thought they knew. These ships moved with deadly precision, their crews working together in ways that seemed impossible. Every shot hit its target. Every maneuver was perfectly timed. The humans fought like they had been preparing for this exact battle for years, because they had been. Dr. Susan Blake, watching from her command center on Earth, felt a mixture of pride and sadness as she saw her life's work being used in battle. The neural enhancement technology she had developed was allowing human crews to coordinate their actions with computer-like precision. The quantum weapons that Colonel Ryan Turner's teams had built were tearing through alien defenses that had protected the galaxy for centuries. But it was Captain Michelle Barnes's training that made the real difference. The crews on those ships had been drilled for thousands of hours on how to fight as a single organism. They had studied every weakness in alien ship designs, every flaw in alien tactics, every mistake the galaxy had made in underestimating humanity. Within an hour of the first contact, the blockade was broken. 50 alien ships had been destroyed or disabled. The rest were retreating in panic, sending desperate messages to their homeworlds about the impossible human weapons and tactics. Jake Morrison's voice echoed across all communication channels as the human fleet regrouped. You voted to cage us, he broadcast to the fleeing aliens. You thought you could lock us away and forget about us. You were wrong. We are not the same species you met 50 years ago. We have been preparing for this day since the moment we reached the stars. The message was transmitted throughout the galaxy, reaching every major world and military command. The blockade that was supposed to contain humanity had been shattered in a single battle. But more importantly, the galaxy now knew that they had not been fighting the real human military. They had been fighting humanity's explorers and colonists. Now, they were about to meet humanity's warriors, and the warriors had been waiting a very long time for this fight. The news of the broken blockade spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. Within hours of the battle, emergency meetings were being called on every major world. The impossible had happened. Humanity had not only escaped their prison, but had destroyed a fleet that should have been able to defeat them easily. Chancellor Vexithera stood in her private office on the Zephyrian homeworld, staring out at the capital city below. Her blue scales had lost their shine, and her normally perfect posture showed the weight of fear. Reports were coming in from across her empire, and all of them said the same thing. Human ships had been detected at the edges of 17 different star systems. But the humans were not attacking. They were just sitting there, broadcasting the same message over and over. You voted to cage us. We vote to free ourselves. The message was simple, but its meaning was terrifying. Humanity was no longer defending itself. It was hunting. Captain. Lisa Harper commanded the human warship Defiance as it approached the border of Corvin space. Her ship was one of 50 that had been deployed across the galaxy in what the humans called Operation Payback. Each ship carried enough firepower to destroy a small fleet, but their real weapon was fear. Lisa had changed a lot in the 2 years since the blockade began. The neural enhancements had made her faster and smarter, but command had made her harder. She no longer thought of the aliens as fellow beings trying to survive in a dangerous universe. They had voted to destroy her species, and now they would learn what that really meant. Captain, her communications officer called out, "We have 3 Corvin patrol ships approaching our position." Lisa looked at the tactical display. The Corvin ships were maintaining their distance, clearly afraid to get too close. They had heard what happened to the blockade fleet. They knew that human weapons could destroy them before they could even return fire. "Open a channel," Lisa ordered. The main screen showed the bridge of the lead Corvin ship. The alien commander looked like a giant insect with armor plating covering his body. His mandibles clicked nervously as he spoke. "Human vessel, you are in violation of Corvin space. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." Lisa smiled, but it was not a kind smile. "Commander, my name is Captain Lisa Harper of the human warship Defiance. I am here to deliver a message from the people of Earth." The Corvin's compound eyes flickered with fear. "What message?" "Your government voted to destroy my species. We remember that vote. We remember every species that supported it, and we are here to collect payment." Before the Corvin could respond, Lisa cut the transmission and ordered her weapons officer to fire. The 3 alien ships were destroyed in seconds, their wreckage serving as a warning to anyone else who might approach. This scene was playing out across the galaxy as human ships appeared in system after system. They did not conquer planets or destroy cities. Instead, they did something much worse. They began to hunt down and capture every alien ship they could find. Admiral Jake Morrison had established his command center on Kepler Station, a human facility that had somehow remained hidden during the entire blockade. The station was built inside a large asteroid, invisible to most sensors and forgotten by the aliens who thought they knew every human installation. From this hidden base, Jake coordinated the largest military operation in human history. But it was not a traditional war. The humans were not trying to conquer territory or defeat armies. They were conducting what their ancestors would have called a persistence hunt. Dr. Susan Blake's research teams had spent years studying the galaxy's economic systems. They had identified the critical trade routes that kept alien civilizations functioning. Now Captain Michelle Barnes led raiding fleets that targeted these routes with surgical precision. The human ships did not destroy the alien cargo vessels they captured. Instead, they took the ships and their crews prisoner, creating a growing fleet of hostages that the galaxy could not rescue or abandon. Each captured ship became intelligence about alien technology and tactics. Each captured crew member provided information about alien weaknesses and fears. The psychological impact was devastating. The aliens had always seen war as something that happened between governments with clear rules and objectives. But humans fought war the way their ancestors had hunted animals on Earth. They never stopped chasing their prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. Within 6 months of breaking the blockade, the effects were visible across the galaxy. The major trade route between the Altarian systems and the Zephyrian Empire had been completely shut down by human raiders. Ships were afraid to travel without massive military escorts, but even those escorts were being hunted and captured by human forces. The Corvan hegemony was facing internal rebellion on 4 different worlds. Human agents had somehow infiltrated these planets and were training local dissidents, providing them with weapons and tactical support. The proud military empire found itself fighting civil wars instead of external enemies. The Altarian Navy, once the most respected fleet in the galaxy, had lost over a third of its ships to human attacks. Their remaining vessels were pulled back to defend their home systems, leaving their colonies and trade partners unprotected. Even the peaceful ethereal collective had been forced to abandon their pacifist principles. They were desperately trying to develop new weapons that could match human technology, but their lack of military experience made their efforts hopeless. The worst part for the aliens was that they could not predict where the humans would strike next. Human ships appeared without warning, struck their targets with overwhelming force, and disappeared before reinforcements could arrive. It was like fighting ghosts who could kill you, but could never be killed themselves. On the Zephyrian homeworld, Chancellor Vexithara received another report of human attacks. 3 more of her cargo fleets had been captured, along with their military escorts. The crews were unharmed but imprisoned somewhere the Zephyrians could not reach them. "How many ships do we estimate they have now?" she asked her military advisor. "At least 200 combat vessels plus whatever civilian ships they have captured and converted," the advisor replied. "But that number grows every day. They seem to be able to build new ships faster than we can destroy them." "And their capabilities?" The advisor's expression was grim. "Far beyond anything we predicted, their weapons ignore our shields. Their ships are faster than ours, and their tactics—" He paused, searching for words. "They fight like they have been preparing for this war their entire lives." Chancellor Vexithara nodded slowly. The galaxy had made a terrible mistake when they voted to cage humanity. They had assumed that humans were like other species, rational beings who would accept defeat when overwhelmed by superior numbers. But humans were not like other species. They had evolved as hunters on a world where everything tried to kill them. They had learned to survive by never giving up, never stopping, never showing mercy to anything that threatened their survival. And now the galaxy was learning what it meant to be hunted by creatures who had spent millions of years perfecting the art of the chase. 18 months after the broken blockade, the Great Hall of the Galactic Council looked very different. The same building that had once been filled with confident alien leaders now held desperate beings who had come to beg for their lives. Many seats were empty because their governments had collapsed under the pressure of human attacks. Chancellor Vexithara stood at the center of the hall, but she was no longer the proud ruler who had announced humanity's punishment. Her blue scales had turned pale and her hands shook as she held the speech she had prepared. Around her, the remaining alien leaders looked just as broken. The Zephyrian Empire was in ruins. Half of their colonies had declared independence rather than continue fighting the humans. Their trade networks had collapsed, leaving billions of aliens without food or medical supplies. The proud empire that had ruled the galaxy for centuries was falling apart. The Corvan hegemony was fighting civil wars on 12 different worlds. Human agents had armed and trained rebels who knew exactly how to hurt the insect-like warriors where they were weakest. The military empire that had never lost a war was losing dozens of them at the same time. The Altarian Navy existed only as small defense fleets hiding around their home systems. Their beautiful silver ships had been hunted down and captured, one by one until almost nothing remained. The graceful species that had once controlled the galaxy's most important trade routes now lived in fear of leaving their own planets. Even the peaceful ethereal collective had given up their pacifist ways, but their attempts to build weapons had failed completely. They had no experience with war, and no understanding of how to fight an enemy that seemed to appear from nowhere and disappear just as quickly. The doors of the hall opened, and Admiral Jake Morrison walked in. But he was not alone this time. Behind him came the leaders who had transformed humanity from a trapped species into the galaxy's greatest predator. General Patricia Stone walked with the confidence of someone who had won every battle she had ever planned. Dr. Susan Blake looked tired but satisfied, knowing that her scientific work had saved her species. Colonel Ryan Turner and Captain Michelle Barnes moved like the professional soldiers they were, alert and ready for anything. Jake Morrison looked around the hall at the broken alien leaders. Some of them could not even meet his eyes. Others stared at him with hatred, but it was the hatred of the defeated, not the powerful. "You called this meeting," Jake said, his voice echoing through the mostly empty hall. "We are here to listen." Chancellor Vexthera stepped forward, her voice barely loud enough to hear. "Admiral Morrison, we come to request terms for surrender." Murmur went through the hall. The word surrender had never been spoken by the Galactic Council before. These species had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. They had never imagined that they would be the ones begging for mercy. Jake Morrison smiled, but it was not a cruel smile. It was the smile of someone who had proven his point and no longer needed to fight to make it. "Surrender," he repeated. "That is an interesting word to hear from the species that voted unanimously to destroy us." The Corvan general who had survived the destruction of his fleet clicked his mandibles nervously. We did not understand. We thought humans were like other species. We were wrong." "Yes, you were wrong," Jake agreed. "You made the mistake of thinking that because we preferred peace, we were weak. You forgot that every human alive today is descended from survivors. Our ancestors lived through ice ages, plagues, wars, and disasters that would have destroyed other species. We are very good at surviving." Dr. Susan Blake stepped forward. "You also made the mistake of thinking you understood our technology. While you were watching our colonies and trade ships, we were developing weapons and defenses that you could not imagine. We had been preparing for this war since the day we first met your species." Captain Michelle Barnes spoke next. "You underestimated our ability to work together. When our survival was threatened, every human on Earth and in space focused on the same goal. We became a single weapon pointed at our enemies." Colonel Ryan Turner's voice was quiet but deadly. "You thought that caging us would make us weak. Instead, it made us angry. And angry humans are the most dangerous thing in this galaxy." General Patricia Stone looked around the hall at the defeated aliens. "We could destroy every one of your species. Our fleets have the power. Our weapons have the capability. Our soldiers have the training. We could wipe out your civilizations and take your worlds for ourselves." The aliens in the hall looked terrified. They had seen what human weapons could do. They knew that these threats were not empty. But then Jake Morrison spoke again, and his words surprised everyone. "But we are not going to do that." Chancellor Vexthera looked confused. You are not?" "No," Jake said firmly. "Do you know why?" The hall was completely silent. Every alien leader was holding their breath, waiting to hear what the humans would demand from them. Jake Morrison looked around the hall, making sure every alien could hear his words clearly. "Because mercy is a human concept. It is something we learned during our long history of fighting each other. We learned that sometimes the greatest victory is not destroying your enemy, but showing them that you could have destroyed them and chose not to." He paused, letting his words sink in. "We are going to let you live. We are going to let your species continue to exist. But you will remember this moment for the rest of your history. You will remember that you tried to cage the one species in this galaxy that had already survived the worst cage of all, our own world." General Stone stepped forward. "The new rules are simple. Humanity will expand wherever we choose. We will trade with whoever we want. We will explore any system that interests us, and no one will ever again vote to restrict us." Dr. Blake added, "In return, we will share our technology with species that prove they can be trusted. We will defend planets that ask for our protection. We will be the allies that we always wanted to be." Captain Barnes smiled. "But if any species ever again tries to cage us, hunt us, or harm us, You have seen what we are capable of. We will not show mercy a second time. Jake Morrison looked directly at Chancellor Vexthara. The galaxy voted to subjugate Earth. Earth has voted back. Our vote was written in fire and steel and the wreckage of your fleets. But we choose to end this vote with mercy instead of destruction. The Chancellor could barely speak. What? What do you want from us? Recognition, Jake said simply. Respect, and the understanding that humanity is not a species to be controlled or contained. We are a species to be befriended or feared, but never ignored. The new age of the galaxy began that day. Humanity had proven that they could destroy their enemies, but had chosen instead to show them something better. The species that had voted to cage Earth learned that mercy was indeed a human concept, and that it was far more powerful than any weapon. The galaxy would never again make the mistake of underestimating humanity. They had learned the hard way that the species from the small blue planet was not just another civilization among the stars. They were something new, something dangerous, and something magnificent, and they had chosen to be merciful. The hunt was over. The galaxy had learned to respect the hunters, and humanity had claimed its place among the stars not through conquest, but through the demonstration of power tempered by wisdom. The vote was finished, and humanity had won.